Let's just start this thing out hard and heavy. The 7600 XT from AMD is going to be launching on May 25th, which is just before Computex. This is all leaked by Moore's Law's Dead. Then he did the leak performance in his podcast. So we're gonna check that out in just a second. Kind of weird that AMD is skipping all the way to the 7600 XT instead of launching, say, the 7800 XT or launching the 7700 XT or anything. And that's with good reason. AMD doesn't know what to do. You're gonna say that, oh, that's a bold claim to say that, but they genuinely set themselves up in a really bad position. And they released a GPU like the 7900 XT, which just clearly was poorly reviewed at launch for how poor value it had. I'm glad that everybody in the community recognizes pretty much off the bat. It should have been called a 7800 XT and been priced a lot lower. About a 25% difference between a 6800 XT and a 7900 XT. That 25% generation on generation actually just makes sense. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later into this video, because this is about the 7600 XT. I'm gonna start you off with what we have more confirmed. And Moore's Law is Dead leaked this here in his video. I don't know exactly who this is from specifically. I don't think he confirms that, but it said we have an early desktop Navi 33 card, which is the 7600 XT, and it's benchmarking 11% above the 6650 XT, and it's consuming about 175 watts. So keep in mind, this is not a final engineering sample, and drivers can improve before launch. Don't know how they get that metric. Was that synthetic? Was that in gaming in general? Who knows? Moore's Law is Dead does also give us some extra specs. I think these are the specs that he leaked into his video. So it's Navi 33, which is the die, 32 compute units. Now this is the big number, and this thing is clocking at about 2.6 gigahertz, 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So it's really important to compare this GPU to what its predecessor was, the 6600 XT. Also had 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It had 128-bit bus, but logically the same memory configuration. Now this new memory might be clocked faster, so it could be slightly faster. Scroll down here, the compute units is the big thing, and we can see that it has 32 compute units. So this 7600 XT has the same base specs as the 6600 XT. It might have more RT cores, we don't really know. It might have more cache, but overall, it probably won't perform that much different than a 6600 XT. Moore's Law is Dead in his leak did say that it only performed about 11% above a 6650 XT. I want to run some rough calculations here. So we can assume some things about this card. It's probably has GDDR6 memory. It's not 6X. None of the new cards for AMD have been 6X memory. The 7900 XT has a 320-bit bus, and it has 800 gigabytes per second of theoretical bandwidth. A bit bus of 128. Take 128 divided by 320 is about 40%. So 40% the bus width. And we can probably see 800 gigabytes per second here. We'll just multiply this by 800. Logically, we could assume that the 7600 XT will probably have a bandwidth of around 280 gigabytes per second to 320. So the memory seems to be about the same as last generation. And we can also do a theoretical calculation of what the performance would be of this card. 7900 XT has 84 compute units. 7600 XT has 32, but 32, 84, we get 38%. That would mean that this new GPU would be about 38% the performance of a 7900 XT. And go here, and it's about the speed of a RX 6600. That doesn't look very good. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt because Moore's Law is Dead did leak that this is a monolithic die. So it isn't a chiplet architecture. Might be a little faster because it's monolithic and it's smaller. So it's gonna most likely clock a little bit higher. And we could see that it maybe it gets up to 47% at 6650 XT. Not all that exciting, is it? Which really sucks. And I think one of the reasons why they're really struggling to compete with their last generation cards is because these new cards aren't really that much different, all things considered. Going from 7 nanometer on TSMC for the 6000 series from AMD, they go to 5 nanometer. And it doesn't seem like we're getting that much better performance per core. So if you don't actually add compute units to the GPU, it's probably not going to be that much faster. It really doesn't seem like the 7600 XT is going to be all that exciting. And I think AMD is caught in a really tough spot. Maybe this should be a 7500 XT. It means it'd be a little bit faster than the 600 class of last generation, but you know, at the lower price. But they're really struggling to hit those prices. And Paul did a really good part in his video where he did like a theoretical calculation of how much it would cost to make one of these GPUs.
And that means it's costing you $62 per chip that you're making, right? $50 for RAM. So AMD might go, okay, well, I want to make 30% on that. So they'll plus 30% on top of that, right? And now the AMDs, you know, $100 for all those components. And the distributor wants to make 10%, so plus 10%. You know, you got to ship this thing, and then you're at like $319 before you know it.
Obviously, everything Paul said in his video wasn't, you know, like a perfect science or anything. He doesn't know all the insider costs of these things to make an accurate representation. See, last generation with the 6650 XT, this was a $400 MSRP card. Now, it wasn't that good of value for that nowadays, but you can get 6600 XTs for $250 now. The market has adjusted for how much these are actually valued at. They probably would have to cut their margins quite a bit. Maybe they would make almost no profit on these cards because this is pretty bad. So AMD is in a really tough spot. So why are they even releasing a new card when it's barely gonna be any better than its last generation? It's probably because of this little thing that's coming out, the RTX 4060 and 4060 Ti, and the fact that Computex, one of the biggest tech events of the year, is happening at the end of May. So these are all coming out right now. But AMD specifically wanted to skip the middle SKUs of their cards so that they could compete with these ones, because maybe they're seeing that these 60 class cards from NVIDIA are going to be pretty bad. 4060 Ti has less CUDA cores than the past generation card, and the 4060 also has less CUDA cores past generation. Now, NVIDIA does have the advantage with this one, like their cores are more efficient. The new GPUs are going to be a lower power draw. It doesn't look like it's going to be significant enough to make up that gap. So the 4070, 5888 CUDA cores, right? So things can change. These cores might not run in exactly the same speed. The 4060 Ti seems to be about 74-ish, 75% of the 4070. About here, it's probably going to be about the performance of a 3070. It might even lose to a 3070, and I don't think I'm wrong to say that. That is not looking good for a 4060 Ti. 3060 Ti last generation isn't that far behind that, 65%. And plus, a lot of people are talking about nowadays with the 3070 having 8 gigabytes of VRAM, where it struggles a lot in newer games that are coming out. If you want to turn on ray tracing, which is one of the main selling points of NVIDIA, you just can't do it because it doesn't have enough VRAM and you get a stutter fest. This new 4060 Ti is also gonna have 8 gigabytes of VRAM. This doesn't look good. 7600 XT that AMD is trying to capitalize on this. I'm not sure if it's going to be that successful. I'd find it hard that they undercut their last generation cards in price, which is 6950 XT is already $600. So if you would want to sell, they're probably not going to release a 7800 XT because it'd probably have to cost around $500. The 7600 XT doesn't look that good. It's kind of depressing with these new cards. So let me know what you guys think, but I'm not excited for this. I don't think there's really that much of a reason to be excited. Obviously, probably heavily affected by inflation and all that stuff, but also make sure to subscribe if you like this content. This isn't a fun video to make though, but I gotta let you guys know what I'm thinking about here. Anyways, I dragged this outro on way too long, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.